Tonight's topic, of course, is the Portugal Golden Visa, which has been a lot in the press recently, especially over the few months. Of course, a lot of rules have changed. And this is an exclusive interview, effectively, for Portugal.com to give everyone a chance to ask their questions around the recent changes to the Portugal Golden Visa. And for those that are just starting out on the journey of exploring what the program is all about, of course, to gather the essential information to work out if it is something of which is of consideration. So yeah, loads to cover. We've got some slides, as always. It's a regular feature now for Portugal.com. Had some great success, a lot of interest, a lot of questions coming in over the past, six or 7 months now. We've been featuring with Portugal.com, and yeah, it's a great chance to get all the information as it is on the ground here in Portugal, as it changes. Main topic that I'm going to look to cover this evening is, of course, the overall basics of the program. As I say, for those that are maybe just starting out on their adventure into the Portugal Golden Visa, make sure you understand what's involved, what it's all about, who it's for, why it may be something of interest. I'll give a full update on the changes in law which came into effect in October, which has made quite a significant impact to the investment selection that investors now have to qualify for the visa. I will talk about the process involved from point A to B, up until receiving citizenship in Portugal, and exactly how long that takes and what to expect, of course, along the way. NHR, of course, Portugal's very unique incentive is a very hot topic at the moment. Of course, may be coming to an end, which is going to be a bit of a blow for those that are maybe considering coming to Portugal over the next couple of years. However, not all bad news. I'll be giving a full update on that this evening as well. We'll talk about kind of who can be included in the Golden Visa. So for those that are thinking of maybe including their children or perhaps their family on the same application, I'll run down exactly what the rules are and who you can include on that same visa application as well. And we'll give a bit of an overview as to, of course, what we do and how you can invest to qualify for the program. I mentioned earlier, we've got Sam as well. Sam specializes with the Spanish Golden Visa. So we thought it might be helpful to do kind of a brief comparison between, what are the key differences between the Spanish and the Portugal visa route. For those that are generally looking at getting into Europe, the Spain visa may be a valid option as an alternative to Portugal as well. But the main focus is a live Q&A. So, myself and Sam will be as much help as we can. We'll probably answer most questions as we go through the slides. However, you will see a Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. And please do feel free to say hello. We've already had a lot of questions submitted as everyone's registered through Zoom. So we'll make sure we cover off those before we finish as well. But anything that we missed or anything that you'd like to know more about on the slides that we cover, again, put a message in the Q&A and we'll make sure into those shortly. But without further ado, we'll get stuck in. So if you haven't logged on before for one of the webinars with Portugal.com, my name is Jason Swan. I'm one of the senior partners for Holborn Assets, who are actually a global wealth management practice. And I'm based in Portugal, down in the south, in a town called Albufeira, which, although I'm slightly biased, I think is the best part of Portugal. But you'll find me down in the south. Previously, I was over in Spain with Sam up until a couple of years back. I was in Spain with very little understanding of the Spanish language, as is my Portuguese, but there nonetheless for around 5 years after moving out from Manchester in the United Kingdom. I've been in the industry now for around about 15 years. My day job, if you like, I work as a financial planner, helping my clients kind of set up financially when they become European residents, which can kind of span out into a number of different topics around financial planning, whether it be retirement planning, whether it be looking at taxation, accountancy, and generally is making sure all is in order to make sure that you're fully prepared before you move, before you change your tax residency, of course, how to understand the Portuguese and the European laws and legislation as well. But tonight is good, of course, talking about the Portugal Golden Visa. It's something which I've been talking a lot about over the past few years. Being in Portugal, I have become somewhat of a specialist with regard to the Portugal Golden Visa. and of course goes hand in hand with our services as a wealth management company when it comes to helping find quality investment options for the program. I've been, as I say, been in Portugal for a couple of years now. So any questions you have around, of course, the visa, around anything money related, or just generally about Portugal, I shall answer as many questions as I can. Hopefully, I can offer some good value and help you decide if Portugal is ultimately where you'd like to be. So let's get stuck into what the program is. Now, the Portugal Golden Visa it is actually Europe's most successful citizenship program in Europe. And it is something that's been around for quite some time. It's been around now since 2012. There's now been over 11,000 successful applications submitted. And it is effectively a VIP pass for those that are able to invest into a certain type of investment category, allowing them to live, work, and sunbathe as much as they like in Portugal. Now, it's a 2-year visa, and you can renew the visa every 2 years for as long as you like. However, for 5 years of holding the visa, you can apply for citizenship. Okay? You can actually get a Portuguese passport, which is kind of like getting 27 passports all at the same time, because with that, you're able to live for as long as you like in any of the EU states. So you can start in Portugal. You may decide to switch Portugal for Spain, or maybe you fancy Italy or south of France, wherever it may be. But once you have that Portugal passport, it then frees up those options to travel as you wish. So yeah, that's ultimately what the program is about, and I'll kind of divulge a little bit more about how you can qualify for that visa, of course, as we go through following slides. But those that hold the passport, or those that hold the visa, should I say, are treated pretty much the same as a Portuguese citizen from day one. Apart from, you cannot vote and you cannot run for president. But as long as you don't have any political aspirations to run for president, you get all the other benefits of the healthcare system. Portugal has one of the best healthcare systems anywhere in the world. One of the best education systems as well. So for those that are maybe thinking of giving their children freedom to Europe and to study in Europe, it's a very popular reason why certain investors choose the Golden Visa. Of course, it allows you Schengen travel as well, so you can go in and out of any European country, which I think for me and you, Sam, we kind of take for granted, because with our British passports, of course, we don't have the problem of having to apply for a visa to go on a holiday for the likes of Spain and Italy and things like this. But I'm saying for Americans as well, you already have Schengen access, but there are certain countries in the world where simply going on holiday in Europe is quite a challenge. So with the visa, you have the rights to travel through Europe. You are restricted to 3 months at a time outside of Portugal when you're in the visa status. But again, as you receive the citizenship, that is when you're then able to live in any of the countries in Europe without any restrictions. During the visa period, you have the healthcare, you have the education system, all of your family. Of course, it's a very nice standard of living, hence why I chose Portugal over anywhere in the world. I'm fortunate enough to be able to work from my laptop, as is Sam. But although Sam favors Spain, Sam, I'm sure we'll be talking more shortly as to why you prefer Spain over Portugal. But both countries have a lot to offer. And of course, I'm sure you're on this webinar because you already have an interest in Portugal. So probably not too much information needed there. But yeah, lots on offer. And like I said, these are all features of those fortunate enough to apply for the Golden Visa. So going back to destinations, again, Portugal has a lot to offer. There's mainly 3 hubs of Portugal. You have down in the south, where I'm in the Algarve. Algarve is typically a little bit warmer. The beaches are a little nicer. And you could say it's more of a relaxed standard of living. It's a little bit slower, not as built up as the other areas. It's a great holiday destination, a great retirement spot as well. But of course, it's not everyone's favorite. You may prefer the capital over in Lisbon, halfway up Portugal, where it's a lot more cosmopolitan, a lot more built up, a lot busier, still with, of course, a lot to offer. Generally, where working professionals tend to favor. And of course, you have Porto at the north of Portugal, which is kind of a nice mix between the two, you could say. But no matter where you choose, you're not going to go too far wrong. But you can actually get from the top to the bottom of Portugal in about 5 hours. If you compare that to the size of the US, going from the top to the bottom, it's actually quite a small country. And if you do kind of pick your base wisely, you can enjoy all parts of Portugal relatively easy. So coming on to the technical parts, I'll give a brief update on NHR, which is probably the question I'm fielding the most at the moment. Now, for those that are not familiar with what NHR is, it stands for non-habitual residence, and it's an incentive for people to move to Portugal, especially those that have an overseas income, by offering a very low rate of tax for the first 10 years that you become tax resident here in Portugal. It came out back in 2009. It's been hugely popular, hugely successful. It's been one of the main reasons behind the immigration statistics to Portugal over the past decade. And in short, it was designed to attract the world's leading talent to Portugal, obvious reasons. And the way it works is that, first of all, if you are still working, if you are employed or self-employed in a particular profession, generally those in some way directly or indirectly benefit Portuguese economy. You can apply for a flat rate of income tax of just 20%, which is considerably lower than the typical income tax rate in Portugal. Now, for those that are no longer working or may shortly be coming up to retirement, NHR works well again because pension income is taxed at just 10%. And it did actually used to be zero as well. It increased a couple of years back now, but yeah, 10% flat rate tax on pension income is a big incentive to the normal state tax. Now it gets even better because those that are fortunate enough to have income from abroad, such as dividend income or rental income as well. So whether that's a shareholding in a company, whether it is a share portfolio, for example, or perhaps you're looking to rent your home in order to move to Portugal, or perhaps you have an investment for a property portfolio. All of those income sources are completely tax exempt in Portugal for the first 10 years. So again, these are the kind of things we'll help you with regard to planning before you move to Portugal. But currently, we can take advantage of the NHR regime for new residents. However, you will see in red at the bottom that it is. I've actually made a slight typo. My apologies. I had one job to do preparing this presentation, but it's actually ending in 2023. As I hear some gasps from the viewers, but it's actually 2023, which of course is not too long left. Now, incidentally, there is some truth to ending in 2024 because everyone will be pleased to know, as we understand, although it's not been confirmed officially just yet, we expect in the very near future that for those that have two things, which consist of an address in Portugal and evidence of intention to move here, i.e. a visa application in processing, you will have until the end of 2024 to submit your application for NHR. But you have to have those two things. You have to clearly evidence your intention to move to Portugal, which consists of an address, whether it's a rental address or an owned residence, and an application in processing to be able to apply for that. So again, it's actually quite good news because at the moment it's saying it's all finished at the end of this year. But good news, I think, is to follow in the very near future that we may have until the end of next year. For those that are imminently looking to apply for the visa, you may wish to aim to apply for that this year to take no chances. But if you're not able to move fast enough to do that, fingers crossed, we'll have a little bit longer up until the end of next year. Hopefully that will make sense around NHR. And of course, the benefits of this can differ depending upon your nationality and, of course, your circumstances. But it's certainly a topic worth getting the information on in detail whilst the window is still formally open. There is just enough time to do it this year, although that window, say, may be closed very soon. Hopefully we'll get a little bit longer. But any questions that you have on NHR, please feel free. Send me an email, or of course to book some time to speak. Or again, just use the Q&A box, which is perfectly fine for our Q&A section shortly. But that's everything that you need to know for the time being. So coming back to the Golden Visa, now you can qualify, first of all, so is it even possible? Now, you need to meet basically 4 key criteria if you'd like to have all the benefits of the visa. Now, first of all, if you are already an EU citizen, first of all, you don't need the Golden Visa. Of course, you already have to live in Portugal, but you cannot be an EU citizen if you wish to apply for the program. So on the assumption that that part okay, second part is you must have a clean criminal record. And that's part of our due diligence to make sure that your application is successful. But you need to have a clean criminal record. We have been successful with some applications where the clients haven't had a perfect criminal record, where they've been maybe kind of misdemeanors a very long time ago, or things that maybe wouldn't have resulted in prison time in Portugal. So there is a little bit of leeway in that, but in the main, you've got to hold it a pretty clean criminal past, or no criminal past. So number 3 is you must invest into some type of investment which the government has set the guidelines on that will qualify you for the visa. I'm going to give a rundown on those different options that you have shortly. And the last part, and this is the real plus over other EU programs, is that you have to stay in Portugal for 14 days every 2 years, which I know everyone's thinking, that's horrible. That's a horrible thing to have to do. But there is no minimum stay of 6 months, as you will find with pretty much all other routes to citizenship in Europe. And that's a big plus. So for those that are thinking, well, I don't necessarily want to move to Portugal, right, but I would like to have a plan B in the future, or I would like my children to go to Europe, me to stay where I am, or maybe you're looking to retire, say, in 5-10 years from now, you can get the visa without having to move straight away. And you don't have to commit to Portugal, for the next 5 years. As long as you can commit to just 14 days holiday every 2 years, then you can start that clock ticking to getting a passport in 5 years. And you may not even really spend that much time in Portugal during those 5 years. Have that passport to look forward to later in life. There's no other underwriting criteria. There's no age requirement. There's no education requirement. There is no income requirement. It is just those 4 criteria. Very, very simple. Our company has submitted now over 10% of the world's golden visa applications since the program was launched. And we maintain a 100% success rate on those applications. Because we carry out a lot of due diligence on the investments that we recommend, first of all, to make sure they qualify. But secondly, we carry out due diligence with our clients as well, to make sure that you're not paying for things like legal fees before knowing 100% that it's going to be a success. But the criteria is pretty simple. And of course, we will let you know very early on in the process if we feel there's any reason that it wouldn't be successful. Again, any questions on that, please feel free to comment in the Q&A. Now, as far as which family members can be included, it is designed to bring 3 generations of family out to Portugal. And you can include, if you want them to be included, the children and your parents as well as your spouse. I nearly forgot that one. But yeah, whether married or unmarried, you can add your partner to the application. Thought it'd be a bit of an awkward conversation if you didn't add your partner to the application, but you have to be clear. And parents can be included if you'd like your parents to follow suit, or at least have the option to access Europe. If they're over the age of 65, they can be automatically added because a dependency is automatically assumed by the Portuguese government. If they're younger than 65, they can still be added, but there's a little more work involved to be able to show there's some kind of dependency on the main applicant. And children up to the age of 21 can be included automatically, and again, can be extended as they are older than 21. But again, we must prove some form of dependency on the main applicant. And that can be done by way of, for example, still being in education or perhaps receiving financial support from the parents. But there's different ways to do that. We can also play around with who is the main applicant. So in some cases where, we maybe have swapped around, rather than the parents be the main applicant, it's made sense to put the children as the main applicant and actually, the main investor as their dependent to make sure that everyone fits criteria in some way. So again, I'll be able to guide you on the best way to submit the application as part of the process. But you cannot include brothers or sisters, unfortunately. They can, of course, do the same, but they would require a separate investment to run alongside. You cannot include friends or work colleagues, unfortunately, but parents and children, 99 times out of 100, will be fine to include as well. Okay, so, excuse me. Whoa, sorry. So as we look at the investment options, now so these are recently changed, and the new law came into effect in October after much deliberation backwards and forwards between the public and the government. And until recently, we thought the program was going to finish in its entirety. So although the investment options have changed, it is still very good news that there is still plenty of route to the Golden Visa. But I made very clear at the top there that the main change is that real estate of any kind, unfortunately, no longer qualifies for the visa. And that's been something under the spotlight over the past few years. The last change to the program was back in 2021, at which point residential property was removed from the criteria in the main cities. But the latest change as of October now is that no property of any kind can qualify for the visa. Now, that isn't to say that you cannot buy property. So you can still invest in property. You can still buy property to live in. You can buy one to rent out. That's fine. However, it's just that you would need to have another investment that does qualify for the visa running alongside that in the bank. Now, those routes are as follows. Now, the first and by far the most popular option bar real estate over recent years is the option to invest into a qualifying venture capital or investment fund, private equity fund, from €500,000. Okay. The criteria for those funds really is quite simple. The fund must invest at least 60% of the fund into Portuguese securities. And also the fund must be regulated by the Portuguese Commission as well. So that's the first. That is one kind of hands-off, non-involved way of qualifying for the visa. You can make a donation. I think it's the same for Spain, isn't it? Can you make a donation?
Yeah, correct. But not obviously one of the most popular routes, although it might be a little bit cheaper, but it's not. It's not.
I've never found anyone no one's donated any money just yet.
No, I haven't come across anyone either.
But it is an option. It is an option. If you are fortunate enough to wish to donate, you can do that and qualify for the visa. You can donate for the benefit of Portugal. You can also get involved with technological research in Portugal. And it's effectively a donation option, but there is somewhat of an investment element, although kind of deemed as more of a donation. But you can get involved with the technological research in Portugal as well from 500,000. And those that maybe have business interests that already are looking from an entrepreneurial perspective to set up a business here, then you can do that. You can actually set up a business or purchase Portuguese business on the basis that you have a certain number of staff. And that will vary between 5 or 10 employees, depending on whether you are setting up a new business or purchasing one that already exists. But of course, that is very much a different ballgame because, unless you already have a business that you wish to set up, it's very, very involved. So it's not really something that's chosen just for a way to get the visa, but it can be, the visa can be a benefit. You are already setting up a business here in Portugal. But that's it. So one of those four routes, all of which have pros and cons. And the one that we're most commonly asked about, of course, is the fund option, which, other than donating 250,000 euros, is the only kind of hands-off way of qualifying for the visa. So yeah, more on that shortly. But again, any questions on the investment routes? Please do drop a question in the Q&A. Now, just coming back to the process. Now, in short, it's a bit of a busy slide, but in short, Holborn looks after the whole process, right from the beginning of helping you find a suitable investment, right through to receiving your passport in 5 to 6 years' time. And it all starts with setting up your tax number. Okay, we have to apply for your Portuguese tax numbers. And we then will help to set up a bank account here in Portugal as well. And over the time, we'll then see the other key points come in, where then you'll have an acting lawyer. You'll transfer the funds to your Portuguese bank account. You'll invest into the chosen investment route. And once done, we can then submit your application for the visa. And that process, on average, takes around 2 to 3 months. The fastest we've done it is 10 days. We had a lot of escalated applications before the law changed. So we put ourselves to the test, and we managed to get one through in 10 days from start to finish. But in the main, it takes around about 2 to 3 months to submit the application. The most timely part is setting up the bank account, which in itself takes about 8 weeks, sometimes longer, just to set up the bank account. You can speed that up if you fly into Portugal, and you can set up a bank account on the same day. But to do it remotely takes a little bit longer. But once we submitted the application, okay, nothing really then happens until you need to fly to Portugal for your biometrics. Around about 6 months after that application, we'll let you know of the appointment time. You'll fly in, you'll meet with one of our representatives who will take you to CEF. You've actually just been renamed or changed to AIMA, with the new Portuguese Borders Agency. But either way, it'll be a pretty soul-destroying day, unfortunately, where you need to queue up and wait to have your fingerprints taken and your photo ready for the visa card. But again, you'll have someone there to accompany you on the day, help with the translation, and make sure everything goes nice and smoothly. And roughly 6 months after that point, you'd expect to receive your visa, which looks a little bit like this one here. Bottom, not actually golden. I was quite surprised that it wasn't golden. When I first looked at it, I thought it was actually a golden card, but boring, really. But nonetheless, that is what we're looking to achieve. Now, the time frame from start to finish to get the visa will be somewhere between 12 to 18 months. As I say, CEF has recently changed to a new agency, which is showing great signs of being much more efficient. And we're seeing processing times now reduce, which is great. But still, I would set your expectations at around 12 to 18 months to receive the visa. Hopefully nice and clear, but that's it. And just in short, don't worry too much about all this. This is what Holborn does. We hold your hand right throughout the process. We have myself and my team making sure you're up to date and proactively making sure we do everything and cut it timely and stress-free. Maybe not stress-free, but stressless as possible. Everything is done remotely. The only time that we need you to physically travel to Portugal is just for your biometric. Unfortunately, we can't do the fingerprints and the photo for you, but everything else we can do remotely. So that's the visa. Okay, and the visa at that point, as a recap, will last for 2 years. Now, we renew the visa every 2 years. Okay, we can do that for as long as you like. However, once you've held the visa for a total of 5 years, you can submit your application for passport, permanent residency. Now, we can do that on the basis that you have done better than me so far at learning Portuguese, and you can understand the relatively basic level, A2 level of Portuguese, which as a guide is around age 16 study, if you like, so a basic understanding of written and speaking Portuguese. And also you have maintained your clean criminal record. But on those assumptions, we can submit the application and actually do that from 4.5 years in preparation for when you've held the visa for a total of 5. And yeah, at that point, like I say, you have the passport, which officially is the 5th best passport in the world. It allows them travel to over 187 countries visa-free. And of course, the big incentive is to then be able to live anywhere in Europe for as long as you like.
Mm.
Piece of cake. That's it. That is everything that we do. And like I say, we will be looking after the process right up until that point, until you have the permanent residency and your passport. So as a quick recap, we're going to need we've got 2 to 4 weeks for the application. Like I said, we can do it in 2 to 4 weeks. At the moment, it's taking a little bit longer with the bank. So I say, I would give a realistic time frame of say 8 to 12 weeks to submit the application at this point. Around about 12 months to receive the visa. We will renew the visa after 2 years. We'll renew again after the 4th year. And after you've held the total for 5, we'll then apply for permanent residency and your passport. But that's it. I've got a couple of questions coming in. We'll be sure to come to those very shortly. Just a couple of slides to finish off, and then we'll jump into the Q&A. Hopefully that's all nice and clear so far. Sound okay to you, Sam? Covered everything?
Makes very clear. Yeah, very clear. All makes sense. A lot of similarities to Spain, but there's certainly a few points in there which I think are very sort of unique to Portugal, which is obviously what makes it so popular and has been so popular, over the last couple of years.
I can see you thinking, why Spain's better than Portugal? When
I've got it all prepared. No, not at all. Not at all.
No, coming on to that point. That's Portugal. I hope that's nice and clear. Again, I'm going to probably leave it in a moment.
Yeah.
I'm just going to give Sam the stage for a moment because of course, Holborn, we as a company, we've been around since 1998. We manage over $3 billion now globally between 20 offices, and we set up the citizenship part of the group around about 6 years back. And Portugal is by some way the most popular citizenship program currently, but it by no means is it the only solution that we can offer as far as global travel now. For Europe, okay, Sam specializes in Spain, but I'll put on the screen I've put in the details of the other citizenship programs that we offer, for those that maybe not think on just Portugal. For details on these other programs, again, please do drop us an email, which will come through shortly. And you will already have an email, of course, from me last week when I was not too well and I had to cancel. Sorry about that, by the way. Yeah, any other questions on the other programs, please do ask. But yeah, as far as Spain's concerned, Sam, any thoughts on how it compares?
Well, yeah, absolutely. I mean, first and foremost, I think as well, people have a country in mind that they want to go to. So I think whether it's Spain or Portugal, through visiting there previously, people do tend to have a preference on the basis of that. But if you compare the two, there are lots of similarities. And I think where Portugal particularly, as I'm sure a lot of people listening will be fully aware, is the citizenship within the 5 years. And if you compare that to, say, Spain, it's 10 years. Which is it's a relatively sort of long period of time. And in the last 5 years, you've got to spend the majority of your time in Spain. So obviously that makes Portugal very sort of popular. The one thing I will draw attention to with Spain, for people who are from ex-Spanish colonies, so a lot of the South American countries, there really is quite a long list of ex-Spanish colony countries. If somebody on the application is from one of those countries, then they can actually get their citizenship within 2 years for Spain. So it's a particular unique aspect to the Spanish scheme, which we probably find is the most popular. The most popular people who are looking at that option will be people from that background. So it is worth pointing that out. But as I say, with Portugal, I think the 5 years to citizenship and the stay requirements over that period of time really do make it, incredibly popular with people. Obviously, with Spain at the moment, well, I say obviously, but with Spain at the moment, you do still have the option of property. So the 500,000 can still be in property with Spain, which is why I think we've had an increase in interest for Spain, purely because people do like the idea of property, particularly in their portfolio. If they're looking for diversification, property is really popular. And Spain is very flexible on what property you can have. It can be anything from commercial properties to residential properties. It can be land, it could be car parking spaces. It really doesn't matter. And I think that makes Spain popular. But again, I'd say at this point as well, I get a feeling there's all murmurings in the background that potentially Spain will follow suit with Portugal. I don't know. We don't know for sure, but I would imagine personally that would probably be the case over the coming years. I think part of that is economical. The effect on house prices. Certainly with Spain, and there's a new government now, and I think that's something they will look at. So again, don't know anything official there, but it's certainly something I think which draws a lot of people to Spain at the moment. And I think as well, obviously Portugal, there's been a few changes with regards to NHR, and that's why I think a lot of people are looking across to Spain. But in terms of lifestyle and countries to live in, obviously I live in Spain. Jason's in Portugal. We are quite literally a 4-hour drive. I think just about a 4-hour drive from each other, and it's a very nice drive too. It's via Seville. Yeah. Very very easy to sort of travel from one country to the other, and you do see obviously when you're traveling between the two what fantastic countries are and what nice countries are to live in. But as I say, if anybody has an interest in Spain, and I will draw attention again, particularly to people who have a background of ex-Spanish colonies, there is a lot of benefits to the Spanish one. As I say, I'm sure people here have, looking at Portugal for the reason they want to be Portugal, but certainly if people are open to looking at other options, then Spain is certainly an option. So yeah, that's what I'd say for Spain at the moment, Jason.
Yeah, nice. And they're very similar in some ways. The minimum investment sum is claim 500,000. There's two key differences, I would say. One is some said the time for citizenship is 10 years instead of 5 years. And the other good thing with Spain, of course, if you're only just looking to live in Spain, there isn't a minimum stay requirement in Spain. It's only if you want the passport where you need to live in Spain, isn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah, so a lot of people won't necessarily go for citizenship in Spain because obviously, as I say, if you go to your last 5 years, you've got to spend over half the year on each of them years. You really do have to be settled in Spain to do that. But obviously, just to have the golden visa, to have the residency option, then yeah, there is no minimum stay. So people looking potentially, even if they're not looking to go to Spain right at this moment, but they feel they might do in the coming years, particularly if there are changes, for example, to property. It's the reason I think some people are looking now, because you can almost hold an asset, but you don't have to spend any time over in the country, which again makes Spain pretty unique from that perspective, particularly if you're not going for the citizenship route. So yeah, that's absolutely correct.
Nice, very good. So yeah, look, fortunately you're not going to go too far wrong. Obviously, me and Sam clearly do not see any sun. Either Portugal or Spain. Your tan's about as good as mine.
I know, it's sad, isn't it? Really, it's getting cold here now.
I think it's sunny during the day.
It is.
But yeah, so hopefully that's helped everyone. So thanks, Sam. And I'm just, whether it is Portugal or Spain, there are of course some key things to consider when selecting your investment. Now, as Sam said, Spain does allow investment into property and remains by far the most popular investment route for Spain. But of course, those looking to get into Portugal no longer have that option. And unless, again, you're looking to make a donation or you're looking to set up a business in Portugal, the default option is going to be to choose a suitable investment fund that qualifies for the program. So again, there'll be some people watching that have experience dealing with investment funds, and there'll be others that have never even looked at an investment fund. And it does require, an advice. It requires a lot of information to work out which fund is suitable. And just some really quick tips, first of all, to what to look out for. Now, there are around about, I don't know exactly how many funds. There's not lots of funds to qualify in Portugal, but I would say maybe 15 to 20 funds in total, if the government has approved and meets the criteria for the visa, all of which vary in nature and vary in pretty much every way. But the key questions you want to be looking out for, first of all, is what I'm first asked is, of course, how secure is the investment and how secure is my capital when I'm investing? So you've got to be conscious, you've got to be aware of exactly what security that you have in place. Of course, I've also seen people looking at funds that tie money up for longer than they need to as well. Of course, you need to maintain an investment for around about 6 years, maybe a little bit longer. But some funds tie money up for in excess of 10 years, which maybe longer than what you need the investment for. There are a range of funds which I've seen in the marketplace in Portugal which have excessive fees in charges. And this is probably my biggest bugbear. A lot of certainly Portuguese funds is there can be entry funds, management fees. I've seen performance fees of up to 50% of some funds, which is outrageous, and exit fees. Sometimes very heavy exit fees as well. And where you can, of course, you want to be looking for what we call clean funds, which don't carry with them at least not excessive charges. And just be mindful that you have a full understanding of what funds, of course, so what fees that you pay in those funds. Of course, be aware of what the risk of the investment itself is. Does it have a variable return? What industry is it invested into? How long has the fund been around for? Is it a low risk fund? Is it medium risk? Is it high risk? Do the returns match the risk rating of the fund? Again, some funds offer guaranteed returns. Are they guaranteed? Is the first question. Are they fixed returns? Do they have a variable return where one year you could earn lots of money and the next year you could lose half of it? These are the key things that will look to guide you on. And well, for obvious reasons, make sure that the fund is regulated. To make sure that you have a source, you have a recourse if anything was to go wrong. But secondly, to make sure you qualify for the program. One of the qualifying criteria is that it has to be a regulated fund. But there are investment houses out there in Portugal that will sometimes give the impression that it could qualify for the visa, but if that natural fact isn't a regulated fund, it actually wouldn't qualify. So always be mindful of these things. Naturally, when we speak on a one-to-one basis, we'll kind of talk through these topics. But this is what specifically that we're looking for now. As I mentioned before, we manage in excess of $3 billion between our offices, and we tread very carefully as to which investment options, funds, or property we recommend to clients. Because, of course, anything that was to go wrong comes back negatively on our main business, which is that wealth management aspect. The Golden Visa part of the group is a relatively small part of one asset as a whole, but is equally important when it comes to our reputation as advisors. So we're looking at where we can. First of all, making sure that you have asset-backed, what's called asset-backed security. If you are invested into a fund, that there is a very high element of security, and where you can, having a physical asset or working as collateral towards the investment. We want to get, of course, minimum time periods. We don't need to be getting involved with investment funds that lock funds up for 10, 15 years when the Golden Visa process is only 6 years. We don't like fees. We don't mind fees as long as fees are justified by the fund managers. But where possible, we're looking for funds that don't have entry fees and performance fees and everything, any fees. No one likes paying fees. I don't like paying fees. Sometimes there can be fees, but again, where we can, we want no fees. And we're not getting involved with any kind of wild and wacky investment proposals from different people across Portugal. We keep things very simple. We look for low risk investment options that are, of course, regulated by the Portuguese Commission, that have a good track record, amongst other tick boxes as far as the size of the fund. Do they have a reputation? What have the previous funds looked like? What have performance been like in the past? But as a whole, we're looking at low risk, very straightforward investment options, so that you don't need to be concerned about, the value of the investment fluctuating wildly each year. We're very good at looking at funds that have an upfront return as well. A USP for us is where we can actually put together funds for our clients that, for example, may pay an interest up front. So taking the interest from future years and paying that up front so that you can maybe reduce that initial investment capital from 500,000, maybe closer to 400,000, which can be particularly good, of course, if you're selling other investment to free up the capital to invest, allowing our clients to not have to sell as many other assets to be involved in the program. Fixed and guaranteed returns. We've been doing this for quite some time. we don't. Our average client for the Golden Visa is not necessarily experienced in dealing with investment funds and don't particularly have an interest in variable high risk funds. So if we can fix the returns, if the fund is offering a guaranteed return, it takes that worry away from understanding, the market perhaps that it's invested into. But again, not always possible, but that's what we look for. And again, if we can find funds which are offering additional incentives, oftentimes we can have good funds that will also allow complimentary stay at a nice hotel, for so many weeks per year, or maybe they'll offer free legal fees and things like this. So again, always looking to kind of reduce the capital required, minimize fees, maximize the value that you get from the investment, and of course, not only cover the cost of the visa process, but to make a profit as well, of course, over that investment time frame. So that's a very brief overview. Again, I don't want to I'm talking for too much longer. I would like to jump into the Q&A, but any questions on these, of course, please do get in contact. Once we speak on a one-to-one basis, we can go through what investment options are available in Portugal, and I'll help kind of guide you to which ones are best for your requirement and your individual need. But that's what we do. That's the general overview. I think I've covered most on the Golden Visa. So that's it, really. So I'm going to jump into the Q&A. I've just put on the screen, of course, my contact details for any questions that you have about the Portugal Golden Visa. But you can scan the QR code on the screen for further information. That'll take you to Calendly to book some time in again to go through any particular question you have on tonight's webinar or for any personalized information as far as, of course, detailed investment information. Of course, you can request a copy of this evening's webinar. I have a really helpful Portuguese tax guide as well, which gives you an overview on all the different types of taxes in Portugal, from wealth tax to succession tax to income tax, for everything, of course, around NHR as well, which is available. And of course, the main thing is to get in touch. We're happy to help. I'll go through any questions that you have. And if Portugal is the way you wish to travel, to move, then give us a shout. We're not going to charge anything for the advice, and I'm sure we can answer some further questions. Okay, so on that note, I've got a few questions coming on the Q&A. Sam, I know you've got all the questions that were submitted before the webinar as well, so we'll cover those. I'll just jump into the initial questions from the webinar. So hi there, Pat. How many current investment funds current fund options exist for 2024? I think I may have mentioned at the moment in the open market in Portugal, there are around about 15 to 20 qualifying funds of different nature, different capacity, different risk rating, different incentives, different industries, and so on. And that will be increasing again now that Portugal has abolished property as a way to the visa, and naturally we'll expect more funds to become available in the marketplace, around 15 to 20 out there from different fund managers at the moment. Is there a return on the venture / private equity fund? Yes, of course. Yeah, it wouldn't be a very good investment without a return. So we will always be looking at investments that do generate a return. And it's very rare that we don't, although we only look at low risk investment options, often which have predetermined returns. It's very rare that they don't cover initially all the costs for things like legal fees and the government fees, and are profitable on top of covering the cost of the passport as well. So yes, definitely a return. The cost ultimately for process depends largely on the number of family members on the visa. Holborn doesn't charge any fees. We do get paid, of course, but we're paid by the investment providers, by us facilitating the visa process. Naturally, it allows them to raise capital or investment into the fund. They're very happy to pay our fees. The fees for you as the investor typically come down to just legal fees and the government fees as well. And again, on a one-to-one basis, I can share my screen and show you exactly what the breakdown is for your family over the next 6 years. Again, just scan the QR code to book some time in to do that. But yes, there's definitely a return on the funds that we'll be talking about. Hi there, Alison. Can I receive a copy of these slides? Yes, indeed. Maybe not the slide, but I can do you one better. I'll send to you my complete guide for the Portugal Golden Visa. And if you could just send me an email, Alison, just to remind me, jason.swan@holbornassets.com, and I'll be sure to send that over to you, no problem. Hi there, Pat. Also, there are 350,000 applications to be reviewed and processed by the new AIMA that will take a minimum of 1.5 to 2 years from now. What is the realistic time frame for receiving approval? 350,000 sounds high, that Pat. There's only been around 15,000, I think, in total submitted since the program was launched. A little bit higher now, perhaps, but 350, maybe there's an extra zero on that, perhaps, but there is a lot of applications being processed. AIMA is showing some good signs of processing applications faster than CEF. At the moment, as I mentioned earlier, I would set your expectations at around 12 to 18 months to receive the visa, okay, to actually get the visa in your hand and then have access to Portugal from that. Okay, after the visa, Golden or D7 is granted, can I buy health insurance in Portugal? Yes, perfectly fine. You actually buy health insurance in Portugal before you get the visa. Not that you need it, but yeah, no problem. You can buy that any time. How can the fund survive if no management fees are levied? Does the fund have a track record? The answer to that will depend on which fund that we explore. But the funds generate not necessarily money from fees. Some funds do. But if there are no fees, then you'll find that the fund is investing into other areas. And that raising of capital will allow them to profit from other investments that are running alongside the within the fund. So, yeah, it depends. It's like I say, we look for funds that don't have fees unless justified. And again, my job is to help compare the different investment funds in Portugal to show you the one that fits you personally. But yeah, they certainly make money. Naturally, all funds will make money in some way, but again, I'll explain exactly what the makeup and the mechanics are, of course, of the funds as we review those together. Where can I find a list of the funds? Well, best thing to do is to scan the QR code, and we'll go through those on the screen. We don't send there's not a list of funds as such. Some funds require certain criteria. Some funds you must be a professional investor. Some funds require other caveats as well. But once we have a discussion, I think we'll share on the screen fund options available, and we'll be very happy to guide you to the best solution. Super. Okay, over to you, Sam. So we've got a few minutes, everyone, if you want to submit any other questions before we finish up. We'll get stuck into the other ones.
We've got a fair few here, but I do think you've answered a lot of them. So let me read through them. You might bat some of them off pretty quickly. So first one, why did the Portuguese government end the Golden Visa via real estate investments? And will it come back in the future? It's $1 million question.
They finished because there is a housing crisis in Portugal, and the government, rightly or wrongly, feel the removal of the Golden Visa program will solve that problem. It was one of the 16 changes posed to solve the housing crisis in Portugal, one of which, personally, I feel will have absolutely no impact at all. I think Golden Visa applications equate to less than 1% of all property transactions in Portugal. I really can't see it making much difference, but that is why. That is why, and also perhaps a bit of pressure from the EU in general to stop issuing European passports so easily. But I think the main one was try and curb house prices. House prices have gone up 48% in the past 4 years, which is great for homeowners, but not great for first-time buyers.
Yeah, no, that's very true. And again, I think Spain might be similar for the same reasons, rightly or wrongly. That's, potentially in the future why Spain might do away with property. But anyway, next one, is buying an investment property in Portugal qualify me for the Golden Visa? Well, obviously we've gone through that. You can't buy the investment property, correct, Jason? Unless you anything to add to that? You know anything different?
You can buy an investment property. That's fine. Portugal's still very happy for you to buy a property. It's just that the property won't in itself qualify for the visa. You'd have to invest into one of the qualifying routes. to allow you then to live in Portugal. But if you don't want to live in Portugal, you can still buy a property by all means. Or if you do want to live here, yeah, as long as you invest into something that does qualify, you can do both.
Absolutely. And we've got here, which again, we know the answer to this, but I'll test you anyway, Jace. What is the minimum investment required in the arts and national heritage category?
The donation option is 250,000. The investment option is 500,000.
There you go. Simple. So it says here, Golden Visa, stay 35 days in 5 years, can apply for passport or only permanent residence. So Golden Visa, stay 35 days in 5 years, which is your 14 days every 2 years.
That's right, yeah.
Yeah, can apply for passport or only permanent residence. But I think you answered that as your passport.
As long as you stay 7 days every year, 14 days every 2 years, 35 days every 5 years, all is fine. That will maintain the visa. And as long as you do that over that time, then you can apply for permanent residency and the citizenship after 5 years.
Yep. Okay. Next one. What property investments are still available for EU residency?
Well, that one would be one for Spain. That's what, because property options are no longer available.
So obviously we can obviously discuss that with people with regards to Spain, as we know that that's the 500,000 option. There are obviously other options in other jurisdictions which we covered, which we do. But yeah, not for Portugal on that one. Does remote online applications work? Can a non-USA citizen enter Portugal from USA? I think it's two separate questions here. So does remote online applications work? And can a non-USA citizen enter Portugal from the USA? That makes sense?
Yes and yes.
Okay. Perfect. Okay, brilliant. Okay. If I fund an investment, will I be eligible to become approved before the program is terminated? If I wanted to mean NHR, if I fund an investment, will I be eligible to become approved before the program is terminated? So I presume this is talking about NHR.
In short, as long as an application is submitted and we have an address in Portugal, you can apply for an HR. If it's referenced to if the Portugal Golden Visa itself is cancelled, again, as long as you've submitted an application before the law was implemented to change the program again, you'll be protected under the current laws, both of which are.
Yeah, okay. There's a few here I won't read out because it's things like real estate options, but we've covered this. How does this scheme differ from the NHR scheme? It's a bit of crossover there. Yeah, okay.
It's a common question. I mean, NHR, just to be clear, NHR is a tax status. So it's not a visa. So your visa is permission to move to Portugal. And NHR is the tax status you can apply for when you've moved to Portugal. So generally you do both. You need a visa to get here, and then you'd apply for NHR and you become tax resident. Yeah. So, but it's not. A lot of people do think NHR is a type of visa, but it's not. It's just a tax. How you're treated for tax purposes when you move here.
Okay, we've got one here that says, what would be the overall cost? So for doing it. So
the overall cost again breaks down to two costs: legal costs and government fees. They vary depending on number of family members. As a rough guide, it's around about 6,000 per person in government fees. Legal fees quite drastically vary depending on the number of family members on the visa and which law firm, of course, that you use. But again, any specific costs, I'll go through that on the screen once I've spoken to the person that's asked there, Sam, and go through that.
Yep. And that's it, Jason. There might be a few more to come up live, but that's the ones we had in prior. That's the ones we've got. The other, there's a couple on there, but you've already gone through them in the presentation.
Super. Okay, so I'm in the USA, but for a non-USA national, can you apply for a golden visa? Okay, yeah, so this may be the question, Sam, that we've just answered there. So yes, you can apply as a non-USA national from the US. That's perfectly fine, as long as you are not an EU citizen already, you can apply from anywhere in the world, no problem, and it can all be done remotely. The only time you need to come to Portugal is for the biometrics, which will be around about 6 months after we submit the application. Everything up until that point and after that point is done online. Hi there, Alison. Is there any investment required for the B7 visa I've heard about? In short, no, there isn't. And it is quite different to the Golden Visa by the fact that you have to live in Portugal full time, and you have to continue to live in Portugal full time up until citizenship. And of course, there are other requirements for the D7, such as income and saving levels as well. So, as it's not the topic of tonight's webinar, Alison, happy to go through that with you on a one-to-one basis, by all means, and I can compare the two options for you. I hope that answers your question on that one. Another question from a cousin who has EU citizenship. Is investment required for an EU citizen to gain Portuguese citizenship? In short, Alison, an EU citizen already has access to live in Portugal and therefore doesn't need to get Portuguese citizenship. And that's one of the benefits, as you and I used to have, actually, Sam, before Brexit.
Yes, correct.
We had a European passport, and now we've got to mess around with visas every time we move country. But yeah, an EU citizen already has rights to live anywhere in Europe, which is great. Yeah, no investment required. We've already got the treasure at the end of the rainbow. Alright.
Yeah.
Super. Right, I think everything we've done all right there, Sam.
Well.
Time-wise, we're doing well. So yeah, I think we'll finish up there. Thanks everyone for joining. Hopefully that was helpful. Myself and again, we're on hand for any questions that you have. Yeah, hopefully you added some value. We will I think we've been asked Sam to jump on again in January time with Portugal.com.
Yeah, perfect.
So yeah, we'll give a further update at that point. I'm not expecting any major updates. Hopefully no more updates over the next 6 weeks, but NHR, I'll probably have some more information around NHR at that point. I will, of course, keep everyone up to date with any substantial information. Of course, everyone's registered this evening. You've already had an email from me last week, just to apologize for having to reschedule due to horrible man flu. But I will keep everyone up to date with any major updates. But yeah, let's get in touch with any questions. And yeah, we look forward to speaking to everyone soon. Thanks everyone.